One of the more interesting thoughts that I've seen somebody express, I think, on Twitter was the idea that the coronavirus crisis could change the makeup of the Bundesliga and could hasten the development of a more investor-led system, with clubs effectively needing someone to bail them out. And we know it's not going to be the German state that will bail out the Bayern Munichs and Borussia Dortmunds. Do you fear that this could be the outcome, Jonathan?
I'm worried about the complete existence of German football as it is, and it's how, I don't know, in a way it's so odd. At the beginning of the season, there's a lot of talk about who's going to win the title and the impacts of that. And when we got to January, obviously we were, the stage was set for a potentially historic turnaround on the football pitch in terms of what would happen if RB Leipzig won the title, because that would have been a watershed moment for German football and probably would have been the downfall of 50+1. Now, from a completely different direction, there's certainly a lot of, I don't want to say sharks in the water, but I think, at a time like this, when a lot of people have a lot of time to think and there are a lot of opportunities to consider how to make changes, and you have to assess a financial model which is under great strain, it wouldn't be a surprise to me if such ideas came to the fore and we saw drastic changes to the infrastructure of German football just out of the situation, just because of the context that it's happening in.
I agree. I see it as a real threat, especially if the season is not finished. So if the season is not finished, there are 750 million euros that were in the budgets will not be coming. And so everybody is more or less bankrupt, or 80% of the clubs and so. And if you want to survive, a lot of people would say, yeah, we need money, we need cash flow and so on to let the club survive. And the only option then would be investors, because no bank, as Jonathan said, the state wouldn't bail out the Bundesliga. There would be no acceptance for this. And so in the end, yes, it's a real threat for 50+1. So in the end, we probably would have a complete different football landscape and the loss of the, what I would say, German football identity.
I think we'd all want to cling on to 50+1 if we possibly could. If there was a scenario whereby that wasn't going to be manageable, and that's the scenario that Christoph has outlined there, then what you would hope is that if they did need to bring in investors, if they did need to allow that and go for perhaps a more English model, if you like, what you would hope wouldn't happen is the adoption of what is England's very lax approach to who should own a football club, because we've seen numerous examples up and down the leagues in England of mismanagement and the wrong people being in charge.
But don't you think, Kevin, clubs. If that happened, don't you think, or wouldn't you be concerned, I certainly already am, even at the mention of it there, that we would already be at the altar, proverbially, of the investor at that point? Because, as Christoph said, if everybody's 750 million down and that person comes in and saves the football club, whether you like it or not, you're indebted to them. And
of course,
that's a situation of power that is very difficult to avoid, as much as I would hope that the current football structure stays the way that it does, because ultimately that's what sets Germany apart. I do have, great fear that that's going to change and Germany is going to become unrecognizable.
Yeah, and I guess, this is a scenario that isn't ideal if it comes to that. As we've said, I think, we're all pretty much defenders of 50+1 and German football, is very special to all of us. And one of the main reasons for that is the 50+1 model and the way that these clubs are managed. However, if it's a choice between extinction of many of those clubs and them being saved, as unpalatable as that might be the way we have to go. What I feel is, if we do have to go in that direction, what we would want is much more stringent controls on who can take over those clubs, because I don't think they'll be short of offers. I don't think they'll be short of potential investors, or at least I hope they wouldn't be. So hopefully they would be, there'd be more checks and balances in German football than there are in English football.
Well, maybe the clubs will get lucky and they will all get a really wealthy owner like Dietmar Hopp, who has gone from public enemy number one to the man who might just save the world, thanks to one of his investments, which, for those who haven't followed the stories, one of the companies he owns in biotechnology is working hard on a vaccine for the coronavirus, and he has very publicly declared that it will be shared across the world, not just given to the US, in spite of some strong interest, allegedly from Donald Trump. That's a hell of a plot twist, isn't it?
What a plot twist. Unbelievable. It's like something out of Netflix. So it's just crazy. Season 2, star, bang. Change.
I was going to say how quickly things change, but the banners now seem about 4 years ago.
I mean, every day feels like 4 years ago at the rate of news these days, to be honest.
That is true.
Well, we can only hope, I guess, whether we like Dietmar Hopp or not, that his company will be successful in finding a treatment, or indeed somebody else will, as soon as possible, for all our sake.